Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Michael Steele back with us. We'll chat with Michael in just a second, but first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you'd like the podcast, please follow or subscribe and rate and review, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. All right, let's get to Michael Steele. Michael is the co-host of MSNBC's The Weekend and host of the Michael Steele Podcast. Prior to joining MSNBC as a political analyst, he was elected Lieutenant Governor of Maryland in 2003. Following his time as Lieutenant Governor, he served as chairman of the Republican National Committee from 2009 to 2011. He was the first African-American to hold either office. He has appeared on Meet the Press, Face the Nation, Real Time with Bill Maher, and The Daily Show, and is also the author of 2 books. Michael, welcome back into the back room.
Hey, man, it's good to see you, Andy. It's always good to be in the back row, baby.
Nice to have you here. So this morning, you and Joe Scarborough had a nice spirited conversation about civility, and I happen to agree with you 100%. So I want to give you a few minutes to just sort of expand on the points you couldn't get to make because you didn't have the time on that program this morning.
Yeah, let me just, Joe and I have been boys for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so he and I have always had spirited conversations. And I love the fact that we can push back and forth on things. And the idea of civility that I was trying to make, and again, it was a word that he put into the conversation. And I just want to be clear about what we're all being asked to do and why we're being asked to do it. And I think that's an important conversation to have because there has been a double standard in the way the incoming administration has treated the country, treated the current president, and has threatened the citizens. And so in the face of that, the question begs itself, how does one remain civil? And a lot of it turned on, and you saw it, which, a little bit viral, Barack Obama and Donald Trump having a yuck it up moment, don't know what they were laughing about. And it really didn't matter because there should be some level of civility, camaraderie among the presidents in the President's Club. But that is not the case, as you noticed when George Bush walked into the church. And my boy just blew past Donald Trump like he wasn't there, slapped Barack Obama in the chest and kept rolling, right? But that's George Bush, and that's his style. But he made the point that he was not going to dignify this moment with an engagement with Trump. And that's his way of dealing with civility. And so I think we're all going to be tested and asked that question about how we engage with this administration. I know media outlets, including my own, are looking at this. I mean, we don't want to be in a constant fight with an administration that you just can we just have truth and honesty and facts, and then we can share that with the public. Guys like me can talk about the ups and downs, the right and wrongs of a policy or an idea. And not get lost in the histrionics of, neo-fascism or whatever. And so that was really kind of where, I wanted to go with the conversation. I'm glad I had it. And, Joe and Mika, we're a team. We've been, like I said, in the trenches. And so we've gone at each other in the past. So, there's, folks want to, not even folks making any deal about that. So that, they're really focused on the question too. Hey, what about this civility thing? And I think it's an important question.
Yeah, and I thought it would be important to discuss because I think it's the issue you were talking about. I mean, roundtables, pick your show, pick your network. These conversations
Exactly.
get spirited all the time. The issue for me was when you said something like civility. It's going to be driven by Trump. He's the one. Why do we have to be the ones to proactively be civil? And that's the point. That to me is the point, is that we know who he is. We know what he said he's going to do. And we've got to respond to that. Like we just because he's the president now or going to be in 10 days, we have to also bow to the king and make nice with him. I don't buy
and
that.
I don't think we do.
No.
That's why I said it's a two-way street. I show you the same amount of respect you show me.
Absolutely.
You show me none, you get none back. I can't, like the song says, I can't make you love me, right? But what that doesn't mean is that I'm going to, sit there and let you abuse me too.
Right.
And this abuse that our country has been under for 8 years. I mean, stop and think about it, Andy. Even since before Donald Trump in the latter parts of 2015, before he came down that golden escalator to announce his presidency, this man has been in our conversations every damn day since. And stop and think about it. I mean, you don't talk about a family member as much as we talk about Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And that type of constant drumbeat wears down a nation, wears down its people. And that's been the end game from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
We'll just keep you we're just going, now we're dealing with, we're about to go steal Greenland. And so we're off down that rabbit hole for 400 years. And then we're going to, now Canada's the 51st state. So all this bullshit gets pushed up and out, and everybody goes chasing down the rabbit hole and screaming about it. And we're still talking about him. Well, what did he mean? Do you think he's going to do it? Oh my God. And I'm like.
And you know what we're not talking about, and he's not talking about? Eggs.
Right.
Gas.
Right.
Housing. In fact, he said, I can't bring any of that down because once it goes up, it can't come down.
Exactly. So my response to all of that is, okay, you go ahead and figure out how you're going to take Greenland. Meanwhile, can you tell us what the price of gas is going to be next week? Because I'm really tired of it being this high. Or can you tell me how I'm going to feed the family a month from now after your inauguration? Because you told me eggs were coming down, bread was coming down, my costs were coming down. But then you just said to me a couple of weeks ago, oh, well, that's hard to do. Well, you didn't say that during the campaign. And that's the yin and the yang that I love to see our media do. Absolutely love to see more of our political players, especially in my party, do, and just say, wait a minute, no. But everybody gets caught up in the rabbit hole game, and very important stuff like you just mentioned gets forgotten. Or then, worse yet, Andy, gets contextualized out of the conversation. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's not important anymore. Mm-hmm. Well, we knew he couldn't really do all of that. Really? So you voted for a guy you knew was lying to you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, now he
guy
says,
who was in office and tried, you branded him a bad guy. You branded his economy, which you're benefiting from, as the worst economy in your lifetime. Mm-hmm. Right? And yet you just bought into a lie that presumably won't make that economy better for you since it's so bad. It makes no sense, and we need to be honest about it.
Yeah, but just look at all the other promises. Now he's saying, well, I'm not going to be able to end the Ukraine-Russia war on day one. It'll take a while, but I'm going to do it. One by one, he's dialing back all of these promises, which I think is going to continue to happen. And to your point, it gets contextualized out of the conversation. Yeah. Turn on the TV today. What are they talking about? What are we all talking about? Greenland, Panama Canal. Who's talking about eggs? Nobody. No
one's talking about eggs. And meanwhile, we now officially have a convicted felon as an incoming president of the United States. For me, personally, the lowest moment in the history of this nation.
Absolutely.
The lowest moment. Because everything I grew up and was taught, not just by my mother and my father, but by the nuns at St. Gabriel's, by the Augustinians at Archbishop John Carroll High School, and by my colleagues and friends and contemporaries at Johns Hopkins University, was that this presidency, that despite all the things, the turmoil and the craziness, and I grew up in the age of Watergate. I grew up with the battles over the Vietnam War. I grew up watching culture clash with tradition, right? But the steady voice and thread in that should have been and was oftentimes the presidency of the United States, who calmed the nation's nerves, who made sure that even when they were wrong and made mistakes, the people felt secure enough to hold them accountable and speak truth to power. We're at a point now where none of that matters anymore. Our Supreme Court has given him absolute authority. Donald Trump can, on January 20th at 12:30 in the afternoon, make declarations in which he then ends with these words: "That is an official act of my administration, and there ain't a damn thing we can do about it." Because why? The Supreme Court has said he has absolute immunity to do whatever he wants. So to now have a convicted felon in that space, for me, is a low point for this country and the presidency of the United States. And now the task for us, Andy, and for all of those who are listening, how do we build back from that? What do we say to the kindergartner who started school this fall? What do we say to the high schooler who has aspirations for public service one day? What standard do we give them? Because we've basically said as a country in this generation, that doesn't matter anymore. You can break the law. You can violate the sovereignty of a woman's body. You can ignore precedent. You can, whatever your whims are in that moment, do whatever you want. It does not matter. And I hope that's not where the country wants to end up ultimately. But here we are. And so these moments matter for us, I think. And what strikes me, as I know it does you, there's no leadership. Who the hell's speaking to this? Where's that voice? Joe Biden was a transitional president. He even called himself that. Thank you, Joe. But now I'm looking at the next generation. Hakeem Jeffries gets up on the podium to hand the mantle, the gavel over to Mike Johnson, and he starts off with, "Oh, well, let's take our swords and turn them into political plowshares." And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, these Republicans is I was going to shove that plowshare up your behind, right?
I don't understand. Could you be more specific, Michael? I didn't really understand the analogy there. But you see, where we could start is to make you chairman of the DNC. I'd support that. You already ran one party, right?
I ran one party.
You can do it again. You're saying all the right things.
Yeah, different times, baby.
Yeah. Do you are you encouraged at all about the two critical rulings that came down late yesterday about Special Counsel Jack Smith's J6 report, as well as the requested delay by Trump in the New York hush money case?
You know, and people tell me I should be.
Not even a little?
I can't get there. I can't get there. You know why I can't get there? Because Samuel Alito had a conversation with Donald Trump 24, 36 hours before this ruling came down. And that's a violation of the ethics of the United States Supreme Court. It just is. And I think absent that action, that 5-4 decision would have been 5-4 the other way, or 6-3 the other way. And so I don't have that confidence. I mean, I appreciate it. I think it's the right decision. I think that report, all of it, the Part A and the Part B, you know, the Mar-a-Lago documents case, all of it needs to be fully disclosed, since everything else has basically been eclipsed and shut down by the late approach to solving or answering the questions, the pushing back of the timeline, giving Trump more time that no one else in this country would ever get. Because at the end of the day, what folks need to realize that I have the title as former Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. That means absolutely jack squat if I break the law. Donald Trump has the title former President of the United States. That means absolutely jack squat if you break the law, because there are no protections inherent in our system to a former anything. You are a citizen of the country like every other citizen, subject to its rules and its laws. As president, the Justice Department, others have carved out this space. I have issues with that. I've never believed that if we say no one's above the law, I don't care. You don't get to break the law just because you are in the job with the title.
Just imagine being an accountant who's facing sentencing in March, who goes, "Hey, look, tax season is next month. This is not a good time for me to go to prison," right? You'd be in handcuffs out the door in 5 seconds, right? Like how?
My clients,
yeah,
they're waiting for me. So I just don't I don't subscribe to that at all. And so when you're looking at the whole thing. Yes. Am I happy that the decision went down the way it did? Yeah, sure. Good, because I want the report exposed. I want all of this to get out there. But am I going to now take that and run with it and think that somehow we've turned the proverbial, corner with this court? No.
I'm just saying, like with SCOTUS in particular, we talked about the immunity ruling a minute ago. On some level, maybe we can say, okay, this is the court saying about its own ruling that it is not and should not be interpreted as this guy can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. I mean, if you're trying to look for something, right?
Oh, you just grabbed a string you saw hanging from a ceiling in the corner of the room.
Well, I do that all the time, Michael.
I'm like,
that's why I'm always wrong.
Andy's out here reaching today, folks. No, Andy, I'm sorry. I don't get to pull on that string with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably, look, I'll confess to your audience. I'm old school, if you haven't figured that out by now. I do believe in the honor of service, whether as an elected official or an appointed one. I do believe in the responsibility that goes with that starts with accountability. My mama taught me that when I was in kindergarten. I come home and I had done something, and the nuns are like, yeah, we had to crack his hands because, of X, Y, and Z. And I got home, my mama said, I'm going to crack you behind now because you need to account for what you did. But mama, the sisters already, no, that was the sisters. Now it's me, And so I learned that those values do matter. And so I love this country too much to just sit back and quietly allow what's happening to happen and not say we need better and we should expect better. And as a country, we should now come to the point where, you know what, we're going to have to do a change up. Sorry, some of y'all gots to go. And we're going to look at the rules and the regulations around the ethics on our courts, the terms of the members of our court. We've got to begin to actively put checks in place since the people in the jobs don't check themselves, because we're ultimately the check. We are the people are the check on this government because our founders made it very clear we are that government.
Yeah, well, but 77 million of us didn't give a shit.
And that's fine. That's the democratic process. I get that. And this is the point I was making with Joe, 78 million people voted for Donald Trump. Thank you very much. That's the process. But 82 million people voted for Joe Biden.
Right.
So why did we hold him to a different standard when Joe Biden was president, and now want to go slide back into something else?
Well, because Michael, he has a mandate. He won in a landslide.
1%.
It was such a decisive victory. I could go on and on.
I get it. And look, a lot of it is narrative, and is why I think the Democrats are so incompetent at politics. Because they're afraid to engage the narrative. And by engaging the narrative, that means I'm going to set the pace here. I've got the incumbent. I've got the incumbent president. We've done all this stuff from inflation to infrastructure to debt. We've done all these things. And everyone thinks nothing good has happened. Mm-hmm. That's poor messaging. And so when you come out of the gate and you lose, and now you have to hand the gavel over, you're like, okay, we want to be bipartisan with you. I was like, what incentive do Republicans have to be bipartisan?
No. But the messaging is the issue. That's why I joked about you being, I actually wasn't joking, but that's why I said before you should run the DNC. But it's like all the candidates we're hearing about running the DNC, there's no women involved, really. What about someone like Katie Porter out in California? Young, female, knows how to say stuff. She's aggressive. But I don't know. To me, it's like DNC is just going to fall into the same patterns.
So you've got to, I agree with you. I do have one or two favorites in the pool of individuals who are looking at the DNC chairmanship, because I think they are closest to the ground where the American people are. They understand that our coasts are not our country, but in fact are as much are part of what is also happening in the middle of our country, in the southern regions of our country.
Who are these people?
I don't want to get anybody in. We pretty much had everyone on our show, and I've expressed on my show a couple of folks that I like.
So you're saying there are people who can do the right job?
There are. I think that there are a couple out of the Midwest that can do that. Because I don't want to insert myself into that race, because I don't want to make it that thing, which some people may want to quickly try to do. But I will say that at least from my hearing and in my conversations, I can see that potential rising. The test, Andy, is whether or not the Democrats are ready. Republicans weren't. A friend of mine said to me when I left the RNC, he said, the problem is you were just a little bit ahead of your time. They didn't see what you were trying to do, and therefore reacted and responded the way they did. Even though you won all these elections, they didn't see it in the context of the bigger picture. And I think that's what the Democrats need to be careful of. You've got to give your new chairman the runway to make his or her choices work, because at the end of that is accountability, right? It doesn't work. You don't raise the money. You don't win the elections. You don't rebrand the party. You're out on your ear, right? That's the way it works. Sometimes you do all that. You're still out on your ear, but that's okay, because then you can walk away going, well, shit, I did all that. So the rest is on them. But you don't want to get in a situation where you lose sight of what people out there are saying. There are some legitimate points that could be made about this election cycle that Democrats missed. You don't have to go down the rabbit hole or be the part of the whirling dervish around stupid stuff, because there's more of that than there is the real concentrated, hey, these are the things we missed and got wrong. Focusing on that and leveling that up into the conversation is going to be very important. And the party's got to give these individuals the room to do that. Stress test them for sure, but you've still got to give them the room to actually lead the party, because what comes next is not going to be easy in the face of a Republican Party that has now shown its capacity to control a lot.
Well, do you have any expectation that incoming majority leader John Thune and Republicans are going to, on any level, serve as a critical check to Trump?
No. I'd say no up the top, because I have not seen it in 8 years. It's like the Supreme Court. What's my expectation? Well, my expectation is based off of what you've already done.
Right.
And so if you didn't have the cojones to go after Trump on January 6th, you could not vote to impeach him then, on the worst day of our country's recent history. What's changed now? I don't know why people think all of a sudden John Thune is going to do something in that regard different from Mitch McConnell.
What about the Matt Gaetz saga, as well as the fact that Republicans in private voted for the leader that Trump didn't want, the non-MAGA leader? Is that an indication of something going forward?
Well, it's an indication of some of the internal politics, but largely around the idea that Matt Gaetz is the Ted Cruz of the House. So they didn't like him. That wasn't a hard vote, particularly since it was a private vote. It was a secret ballot. So yeah, we can vote against him, but I guarantee you, if they had to vote on the record with their name attached to that yes or that no, Matt Gaetz that would have gone down like that.
Mm-hmm.
It just wouldn't have.
What about the other nominations? Is there one in particular that concerns you most? Is there one or two that you think might not get confirmed? And I'm talking about the crazy ones.
All of them concern me, and none of them should be in their offices that they've been appointed to. Tulsi Gabbard, none of them. Kash Patel, seriously? Hegseth, you got to be kidding.
Mm-hmm.
This Doge crap?
Well,
really?
But will they make it
Elon
through?
Musk?
Will they get confirmed?
Yeah. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
What's stopping them? You've already heard the soft pedaling on Hegseth.
Mm-hmm.
What if Thune says, Donald Trump, I assure you, he's got the votes in a private phone call with the president. He's got the vote. I mean, all these allegations. So my party's become the party of alleged sexual predators and real sexual predators. I mean, look at all the people who've been thrown out over the last few years, Hawthorne, all these guys, and their sexual predilections. And yet this is the party of the moral majority. This is the party of sanctimonious evangelicalism. This is the party of, live by the way we tell you, women. This is the party of, your body, my choice.
Right.
Right? So I don't know why we keep turning the page thinking we're going to read something different on the next page. 8 years of reading the same thing, seeing the same narratives by the same people should tell me what's going to be different.
Yeah.
So where the advantage for Democrats could be, yes, in the House, despite everything that they may say to the contrary, you and I both know they're going to need the Democrats. Hakeem Jeffries is going to have a great deal of leverage because there is no 63 House seat majority like I gave them in 2010. They've got 2. Mm-hmm. And on any given day, with 9 members already declaring that Speaker Johnson is in their crosshairs.
So knowing how vulnerable the House is, knowing how vulnerable Johnson is, knowing the thin majority in the Senate, let's play out my fantasy. If you were actually running the DNC, what would be your top priorities to win the midterms? Because it's less than 2 years from now. That could be a game changer.
I go to the middle of the country and I farm team the hell out of it. Because they're there. Those candidates are there. Those candidates that can certainly take on MAGA and defeat them. I mean, you look at the near misses and in places where even in this cycle, Democrats picked up seats. So the elements are there. It's a matter of how you get on the ground and you fertilize that soil now. You set those candidates in play now with the community in which you want them to run, and you begin to seed their brand. The one thing I made very clear to every candidate that was running in 2010, from the likes of Tim Scott who was running for federal office, to the likes of a Nikki Haley and a Chris Christie who were running for state offices, and even down into folks who were running for state legislative races, which is why we won so many state legislative races. I think somewhere close to 1,000 seats. And the reason was, you do you, boo. I don't live in your backyard. You do. Mm-hmm. Now, you want to represent these people. So here are the tools we're prepared to give you. But you got to show me what you're capable of. I'm going to top line your messaging for you. I'm going to protect you from national incoming from the Democrats on some issue. Right? I'll do that. I'll give you air cover there. But you got to have show me your ground game. I had everybody show me a plan. How you running your race? What you doing? State party chair? What's your game plan? How you going to do this? I'll fund what you plan. But if it makes no sense, you get no funding. So you come back with a better plan, you get the funding. All 50 states. the reality of it is that the Democrats had it right under Howard, right? And the reality of it is 50 states. You got to play everywhere because you never know where your win's going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
You can't assume your win, W-I-N, is going to come from the spaces it's always come from.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are Democrats sitting in pockets of red that can win, because even within those communities, there are folks who are tired of this MAGA BS, and they're tired of the Trump drama, and they just want someone to fix the damn problem. And if you can do that, you got my vote. And so that would be some of the first levels of steps I would be taking to reimagine the party, because there's here what's happening upstairs and outside, and then there's what's happening inside and in the basement.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more, my friend. Michael, it's always an eye-opener when you're here. Do come back soon. Thanks for coming on.
You got it, my friend. It's always a pleasure. Look forward to coming back and mixing it up in the back room, baby.
Take care and think about that DNC job. So long. This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Matty Rosenberg and co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander, and our logo was designed by Cricket Lengyel. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, and also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and have a great week.